Christian Parenting.
Welcome to the Christian Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Steph Thurling. I'm the Executive Director of Christian Parenting, a mom of 3, and I am so glad that you're here. This is a place where you can bring your real self, no matter what that looks like today, and be given the space, resources, and encouragement you need to set aside perfection and grow into the perfectly imperfect parent God made you to be. I am loving summer and definitely don't want to rush this time, but fall is going to be here before we know it. And as you start to think about back to school, I want to encourage you to think about how you can be praying for your kids this school year. It's so easy to get caught up in the daily tasks of parenting, like getting school supplies, coordinating the schedules, doing laundry, making snacks, and then making even more snacks. But as Christian parents, it's important to remember the big picture. The one thing that truly matters is teaching our kids to know, love, follow, and share Jesus. I am so excited to tell you that the Christian Parenting 2024-2025 Prayer Journal is now available. A Life of Faith, Knowing, Loving, Following, and Sharing Jesus is a prayer journal from Christian Parenting that was created just for you. This journal will guide you in praying over your kids every week of the school year. Together, we will pray that our children will know Jesus as their Savior, love Him with their hearts, minds, and strength, follow Him faithfully through their entire lives, and boldly share His good news with others. Thousands of parents use this journal every year. So join us as together we pray that our kids will live a full life of faith. You can visit cpgive.org to request your school year prayer journal, A Life of Faith. Again, that's cpgive.org to request your copy of A Life of Faith today. And it is more than just a journal. You can also listen to Pardon the Mess podcast each Monday to listen to guided prayer and reflection that follows along. So go request your copy today. Hey everyone, I have a really fun interview today that I think that you're going to love. I am talking with Liz Bell Young. She is a writer and experience designer. She founded Haven Creative Studio, and so she is a creative consultant for many different companies. And she's also a wife and a mom, and she just was so delightful to talk to. I really enjoyed our conversation. Today, we're talking about her book, Let There Be Havens. So we talk about what it looks like to create havens for other people. We're talking about hospitality. And she really emphasizes the importance of being gentle and not feeling pressured to meet unrealistic hosting expectations, which we all know we've experienced before. She shares practical ways to make people feel seen, known, and loved, things like setting up a welcoming physical space and being generous with time and attention. And she also, at the end, you don't want to miss it, she talks about the idea of a hospitality bag, which is a great way to get your kids involved in seeing others and caring for other people. She really encourages us to embrace the possibility of taking care of others and finding comfort and inspiration in the process. I'm really excited for you to hear from Liz. I think that you're going to feel like you're sitting down with a gentle and true friend. So enjoy. Hi, Liz. Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Steph. It's very good to be here with you.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really good conversation. I told you before we started recording that I had all these questions prepared and kind of just shoved them aside. And we're just going to see what happens because we're talking about hospitality today. And I feel like there's so much goodness in what you have put out into the world. And so I want to just see where the Spirit leads us and just have a really great conversation. So I'm excited. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I love off the cuff, so I'm ready.
Okay, well, it'll be great. But before we get into that, I want to hear a little bit about you. So you have a really interesting background, I think. So I want to get into that and hear more about your work life. But first, I want to hear about your family life. So I always ask if you could just tell us about your family, and then can you describe your family in a word or a phrase?
Yes. Yeah. So I know I told you might hear dirt bikes in the background. So that's because I have 2 boys who are currently racing around on them, 15 and 13. And then we have a younger daughter who's 9. And my husband and I are both from Cincinnati, and we're back in Cincinnati after some years of doing different things, kind of wandering around for me, through those college and early adult years. And then we were overseas for a while, and he was with the military. So we had 4 years in Italy. And this was all before having children. And then we
That
decided
sounds magical.
after, oh, it was a really big gift. It really was because, you don't just really usually get to decide, I'm going to go live in this other country for 4 years. But when the military tells you and you get to say
You
yes to
go.
that, you go. And we were thrilled to go. And then we just, I'm actually kind of thankful we had kids a little bit later. One, because of the military, and then he was deployed after that into the Middle East. And so I was thankful that we weren't separated with the really young babes, because that's super hard on families, of course. And so we lived in Chicago for a little bit. I went to grad school there, and then we came back to our roots here. And I don't think we intend on leaving. It's just good to be here with our family. We have a lot of, we live in we're my parents' backyard, basically. And my oldest sister is next door, and then two more sisters down the street. So we're all our lives are very interwoven. And it's good. We've gotten to raise our kids together, which has been a pretty phenomenal thing. Highs and lows, obviously, it's raising children, all the complexities of that. But to have each other to lean on has been a really special thing. And we had to work, obviously, to make that happen.
Right.
And it took years to get here, but it's, then you see the fruit of a lot of that. So.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, and then you told me you have a phrase. What's your phrase?
Oh, my phrase. So I was thinking it's like, it's like both sweat and peace around here is how it feels. And maybe I don't even need to describe it. Is that enough? You can probably imagine the sweat. We love like working outdoors and, building a campfire and, their kids who are very active in creeks and all that kind of stuff. And then just peace, because it's something that I care a lot about, just having space to read and write and make art. And so, we tried to kind of make that something for both of us. And then all under sort of this shelter of the love of God. And trying to continually point them back. I mean, man, we're learning. I told you, I was like, I need all of your podcast episodes. I'm very excited because I see so many things that I long to learn more about. So we are very in progress.
Well, I love those words, I think, or the phrase. I think it's great. You also have to answer my other question that I ask everyone, which is, what is one thing you want every parent to know?
Oh, I think, and so this probably comes from like all the cousins, all my nieces and nephews that I've seen, raised too, because some are now in their college years, and we still have some younger ones around. Just that, like, it's really important, I think, to step up above all of it. It's very easy to, just for that bird's eye view, just as far as like having hope and believing that even in like, sort of the slip ups and the, concerns or whatever happens at school or all this stuff that like, in the end, like what really matters is just this much bigger picture, and we're going to be okay. We can all help each other through the little things. But I just think getting up above that is really important.
Yeah. Which can be so hard some days.
Absolutely.
Like some days I feel like I like know that in my head, but then some days I get so stuck in the little things, and that's when all the anxiety creeps into, right? And that lack of peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I have to have people, sisters, friends remind me like, like Liz, your perspective,
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a daily reminder, because it is so, so easy to be caught up in the everyday things when you're a parent. I mean, you don't have to be a parent, just a human.
Right. Just a human. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your professional background too. And then like where you been, and then how you got to be writing your newest book.
I did always want to be a writer. So that is this little long held seed of a dream. But I took a detour. I went into social work actually for my, the first thing that I studied in school, just because I wasn't quite sure that being an artist and being a writer was a very responsible choice. And I think I always waffled between like sort of this dreamy, kid turning cartwheels to also being like, okay, but I need to be responsible and have a lemonade stand to earn money so that I can buy art supplies, So I understand or understood both worlds as a kid, but I went into social work because well, without really getting to practice, just sort of, internship type stuff. I just wanted to help take care of people. And at the beginning, I did that a little bit in the hospital setting. And then, we had this long break when we lived overseas, which I couldn't do anything with social work there because of licensure. And I just went back to that dream of like, maybe I could make this like a professional choice. And so that's when I went back to get an MFA in creative writing after we finished his tour overseas. And so just getting I was actually at an art school, which was, I think, a very helpful thing for me because I always loved words and images and experiences all kind of mixed together. And so I was able to watch people do that and participate in that and learn in that. And I think that's something that I carried forward into a lot of the opportunities and work that I've done ever since kind of came out of that root of like permission to be mixed up in both at the same time. So then I worked for a church for 11 years. So totally unexpected. But when my husband was deployed, before he left, we were like, okay, we just moved back to Cincinnati. We need to find a place that we feel comfortable. And he's like, I just want you to have a good community when I'm gone for, a year and a half. And so we found a big church that also was just sort of thriving creatively and felt like the kind of environment that we were, excited to step into. And so then I just ended up asking them. I was about to graduate and I didn't want to go on for my PhD. I was like, I don't think I want to be like in a classroom and all that kind of stuff for the rest of my life. But I did want to buckle down and start working. And so they hired me there. And I started writing for them and also working with, the set builders and the graphic designers and all of that. And so I really that felt like it was hitting home with me. I was like, this is the environment. And then tell me too, if you're just like, okay, fast forward, Liz, go 5
No,
more
you're
years.
good.
But anyway, so then I ended up just after a while, I needed to I was doing a lot for, obviously for this church with a brand and a tone and a voice and all that kind of stuff. And I just wanted to see like, okay, if I just created something from scratch and, I have a lot of friends who are very talented, let me just like use their talents and what could we create? And so we ended up making like a photo essay print magazine. And that was my first step sort of in a bigger way outside of the work that I was doing for the church and just sort of the smaller freelance projects that I was doing. That ended up leading sort of to some of the other jobs that I've done, like writing for Magnolia, that magazine ended up being in anthropology. So it got me into some worlds that I was really intrigued by because they're very immersive. And again, it's like sort of this visual and text mixed together. Mm-hmm. And then more recently, I just decided I'm ready to, I had written a first book, just a small little sort of memoir of the 7 years of living overseas and then being separated in our marriage with a deployment. And I had done that and self-published. And then I just decided I'm ready to do a second book. And that's this one. So I found an agent and publisher for this one because I had done a lot on my own. And honestly, Steph, I was just like, oh, okay, I need to lean into somebody else's structure. And I don't really want to project manage, right? I was really weary of all of that. And so I was like, if I could find the right people, this could work. And I felt like I did. So.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you just need someone to take over the leadership role for a minute
and
like guide you along
a different season. A long minute. I'm so tired. Yeah. And just to be able to, to operate in, I mean, I just wanted to get back to the craft of writing and designing a book. And the other skills are great to sharpen. I think it's so good, for all of us to stretch and do that. But I needed other people.
Yeah. We all need a village all the time. So,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Yeah. Family wise, professionally, all of it.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get into Let There Be Havens because I just think it's so beautiful and it's all about
Thank you.
hospitality. And you mentioned that hospitality doesn't have to be stressful. Like you use the word gentle, and which I feel like is really countercultural in so many ways. Like we all see reels about people like panic cleaning before they have people over.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that like this concept of like gentleness actually is really what drew me to do this interview because I really want to talk about that. Like people want to come over to your house and feel loved and they want to feel seen and they want to feel like they've rested, not like leave me like, oh, I need to do better at my house and my cooking and
Yeah.
all of the things. So let's talk about this idea of like creating havens and how it can just impact our life and the people around us lives. Let's just get into that.
Yeah. Well, I think I've had really great models of this. And so a lot of this is just being able to draw from the people ahead of me who have shown me
Mm.
like what the most important thing is when you're taking care of people. And I always knew, I didn't think it should be stressful or it had to be like, whatever, matching plates on the table and all that kind of stuff. But it took sort of a while to kind of articulate that and put it together. I hesitated actually even with the word hospitality in the subtitle because I think it can sort of come off with that. There's a lot of baggage around that word, a lot of pressure. And so I was really interested in countering that. And so using the word gentle in front of it was really important to me because I think you have three kiddos too, and like kids or not, but job, whatever people's life situation is, like not many of us would have the capacity or be able to sustain whatever that sort of fake level of hospitality, or not. I shouldn't say fake, but that pressured level of hospitality could look like if we attempted to do it in those ways. And then because that feels too pressured, so then we just probably opt not to do it.
Mm.
And so then you're just shortchanging each other, yourself. The benefits of taking care of people are huge. And so, we went through, of course, years where, it was babies and toddlers or, just not having the physical space to even bring someone in. And so having to kind of figure out, well, what would that look like if we put aside sort of those high expectations? We're way less concerned with ourselves and whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's part of this is just being like, I'm not in the spotlight here. And I think, just sort of the way hospitality has been shown is often it's whoever's hosting is the spotlight. And so if you can step aside from that and really just think about like loving and helping people feel at home, whether that's momentarily or an overnight visitor, there's so many ways to take care of people. I just think that then it becomes something that we'll actually do. Then it's like a real possibility, for the realness of our lives.
Okay, so this might not be your favorite question, but I got to like, if you don't love the word hospitality, and I get why that would give you pause because there is like pressure to that. Like, what do you think would be a better word?
Well, I think it's why I started with havens, or even just the word haven. But then, and I think this was a really good pushback from the publisher was like, but havens can sound really abstract. Like, what is a haven? And so giving people more of a handle was actually why we made that choice. And so I started with this idea of haven. And since you spent your time in California, this is like, I love the Pacific Ocean, but this is sort of in my mind what I see as a haven. And then I just try to make it more concrete in the book. But, just sort of those coves that come off the Pacific. And, it's rocky, but it's pulled aside. And, you have sort of this wildness of the ocean, the world, but then you have some protection. It's not shut off, but it is a bit of a shelter. You can regain your footing, take a breath. And I think of havens like that, like just being held for a moment in a space like that. whether it's you yourself and the emotional space that you give someone, or if it's a physical, like, a little space that you create for someone, a gift, a word, all of that. That's what I see havens being. And hospitality was a way to sort of describe in more concrete terms what that was.
Yeah. Okay. And then can you give us some like really practically, like when you're talking about making people, like inviting people into this cove and giving them rest, like what are some like practical ways that you would say you can easily just like let people in your life and have them feel seen and known and loved and cared for and rested and all the things that you'd feel in that cove?
Well, I don't know. A funny one just popped into mind, but I'll share it because we said we were doing off the cuff.
Yeah.
Um, but a couple women came and stayed with us recently, and we had met once in person, but sort of new, and I wanted them to obviously feel comfortable here. They were on a work trip. They were super exhausted. And we were hanging out in our kitchen, and my husband and kids were around, and then they sort of like ended up wandering away. And we were sitting there, and I had put out, I don't know, like sliced apples and, cheese and coffee and wine. Like we had stuff out on the counter, but it ran out. But I was sitting on the counter. It's something my mom always did. And I'm like, maybe people find that gross, but like bare feet, we always sit on the counter. And so I was sitting up on the counter cross-legged, and I was like, I don't want to, I just want to stay like focused on these women. And I recognize like there's no more food or drink. But I just, whatever, I was like, it feels more important to stay in this conversation. And later, a few days later, when one of the women like wrote me a thank you note, and she was like, just the fact that you didn't refill the food and drink meant so much to me. And it took the pressure off of, she's like, they sort of they're in the event space, they're always like really keyed in on details and how everything has to be like really good. And she's like, and I just felt that you cared more about me than making sure that, there was a charcuterie board of perfection or whatever. That's I don't know if that's like the right example, but that felt, I think it's things like that I try to offer people. And then just the stuff that I've watched other people do that I feel like it's very much like sort of creating that space is just, I give an example in the book. Actually, I was shopping, and I was, a sweaty mess, just groceries, whatever. And everything was in my arms because I'm not a very good planner sometimes, and no cart. And a woman like up in line, not even right in front of me, wheels her cart back to me and puts it underneath my food and says like, I thought you could use this. In that moment, and I was like, I'm not pregnant. I'm not on crutches. I'm sweaty, but like, I don't look like, a desperate case, other than full arms. And I was like, that was such a beautiful act of taking care of a stranger. So I think it's things like that too. Opening doors for people, hugs, like one of my sisters is really good at this, and she'll go over to like young moms' homes and just like start doing their laundry. And she's a very safe person, so it doesn't put anybody on edge. She just does it quietly and then walks away, and everything's like, and I'm like, that's so wonderful. And it's we need it so bad. And then like, the moms are like in tears because you're like, oh, I just needed somebody to pitch in right now. Yeah. A loaf of bread on somebody's doorstep, a note under a windshield, standing next to somebody who looks awkward or lonely, and just being there. I think those are all coves.
Yeah. Well, and it's just being generous with your time and your attention and focusing on other people instead of yourself. Kind of like you said, like hosting is not about you. It's about your guests, even though it feels like it should be about you. You're like, look what I did. Look what I made you.
I know. I know. Well, especially if you've worked incredibly hard to make something, then so it's like, yeah. Anyway, exactly what you're saying. There's some ego to get over. There really is.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought about that, but there is when you're going to be creating a really warm environment for people. You do have to get over that. Do you feel like living overseas changed your view of that a little bit?
Oh, I've never been asked that. But I think it did. Yeah, I think that living overseas, well, one moment in particular stands out, but I think generally the whole experience of being really, we didn't speak Italian. We lived in a rural community. Nobody spoke English. And even honestly stepping into the military, I have no background. I don't understand that culture. It was very new to me. So it was a whole lot of like, I don't want to say helpless, but just like this unfamiliarness. And so you're in a pretty vulnerable position. And so I think like, you know, a lot of times I think, well, it's very easy to, I think even if we think about like pressured hospitality is about control, right? Like you're just trying to control every tiny thing. I felt very outside of my control in that experience of living overseas and being with the military. So that probably was a really like, yeah, like I said, I hadn't thought about it. So if you're the first one to ask, but I think it was significant. And also, like I said, we lived in a rural community, and it's very multi-generational, right? So the grandmother is still living with a family, with the children, with a son who has a son, and it's all blended together. And people take walks to go pick up their produce and their cheese, and you wear an apron outside, and it's you can wear it's just like the simplicity is a lot different in that way, like sort of the just like the way people even share and walk over, like, our landlord made a lot of wine in grappa, and he was just always just like bringing it to us and loved when we would taste it and loved when we loved it. And so just people like that is a very generous, community that we stepped into. So yeah, I
Yeah.
do think it affected me. Thanks for
Well,
asking.
it's just such a different lifestyle than here where like I hosted 13 girls and their moms yesterday. And it's like you go to
Wow.
Costco and you go get your stuff.
Yes, yes, you do. I know. I was there today too.
Yeah, like you got to we got a new Costco by us. It's very exciting. But like
Absolutely.
rural Italy, they're not running to Costco to get their wine before you come over. They're making it in their backyard.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, I don't know.
I know.
I
And I
don't
think
know how you would
like
live there and not be changed.
I think that's true. And I also I think maybe this is helpful, I think, for listeners too, but like even in the um I learned, and some of my friends and I created this camping event for women, lots of women. And so we had to have many people helping out. One of the things that we learned is how many people wanted to be a part of it and wanted to help. Even when they had arrived as a guest, they felt really good getting to just step into the work and deliver firewood and, chop something and help set the table, all that kind of stuff. And I think like, that is also something that's very present in the Italian culture is like participation, and everybody just sort of jumps in, and it's very imperfect. I mean, things were super messy, even if they were super beautiful. And I think that like what I've learned is like not bearing the weight of like, a whole thing is actually really helpful. So if, I don't do a lot of dinner parties, I think they're very nice. But when I do, like I have two friends where I'm like, I need you guys to be here with me to help me pull this off. And that, again, that also helps you get to focus on the things I think that are also really wonderful and allow other people to participate in it with you.
Yeah. What are your favorite types of ways to create havens for people? Because you've done that camping trip. Like, what else do you love to do that fills you up that you're creating a good space for people?
I've always loved like setting up a little physical space for someone to probably spend the night or um, just be here for a day. And I think, it started as a kid is just like setting up like little places in the woods for, that was really just me. And then an occasional sister would visit. But, just, I loved, did you ever read the Boxcar Children?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that was like one of my favorite series as a kid. And they were so resourceful, and they had to just, well, I mean, of course, they lost their parents, and so they're just leaning into each other, but they had to figure out like how to set up a home kind of with not much. And so I loved that, and I would play Boxcar Children as a kid, and I think I'm still sort of playing box. I mean, we definitely like have resources now. We don't live in a train, but like even just like stacking books next to someone's bed that I think they're really going to love, even if it's just a sentence, and putting out water and getting coffee easily ready for them to like hit a button to brew in the morning. Just little things that I think are going to make someone happy or feel taken care of, making sure the toilet paper is, there's a full roll, just little things like that, cleaning sheets. I love all of it. So, I don't know. I'm very happy making homes. And I feel like that's one of my favorite little things to do.
Yeah.
Even if it's in not like a perfect guest space. We do have a guest space now, but like this is the first time we've ever had it in our lives. And it's really fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you shared that, because I think sometimes people are probably like, I only have a couch. Like, how can I create space on a couch?
Yeah. Well, that's what we used to do. We had a couch and we had a basement with no windows. And I'm like, oh, this is miserable. What do you do? And I don't know. I took a lamp down and created a little side table out of books, and took a coffee maker downstairs with a jug of water, because I was like, I don't think they want to get up at 5 a.m. with me and my baby. So giving them space. But yeah, I mean, I think like being creative, like thinking creatively about how do you solve this then? Like if you want to have someone, if you feel comfortable with someone in your house, like it's never going to be amazing. I mean, you're not going to have everything that you wish that maybe you could have, but like working with what you do.
Yeah.
And pulling
you can
things
do
from
a
other
lot
parts
with
of the
little.
house. And you can do a lot with it. I really believe you that you can. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not about the house that you have as much as the feeling that people have, and you have control over that. You might not have control over where you live, but you do have control over how you make people feel when they come over.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us, I want to go a little bit about like how this book is laid out, because you have like a few recipes in there. You have tons of pictures. It's very pretty. You have a little, it's not even a recipe, I guess, but for like a hospitality bag, like a how-to hospitality bag. What is that? Tell us about that. Just tell us about how it's all laid out, and what's a hospitality bag?
Yeah. Oh, do you want me to start with that one? So
sure, why not?
My middle son and one of my nephews, it was actually their idea. And there are just people here, of course, as is everywhere, who are on the street asking for money or whatever. And it was just like very heartbreaking to these two boys. And one of them said, what if we, like, instead of just like giving them some cash, like, what if we actually put something together that was useful? And then they started like brainstorming, like, oh, it could be this, it could be, a pack of gum. Isn't it nice to have gum? So we put together, I just had a laundry basket and we filled up paper bags, and just, it was a sweet moment with them, just letting them decide like what would be helpful to people, and protein, that kind of stuff, and a little cash, and maybe a pencil, because what if you need to write something down but you have nothing to write on? And so we filled these up and just started giving them out. And I say in the book that I'm like, oh man, we haven't done that in a long time. We loved doing it. And so it was like a good reminder to write about it and be like, no, that was significant. And my kids still ask, will be like, we haven't done the bags in a while. And then I'm like, oh shoot, you're right. We haven't. We need to do those, because I think it was really good as a family to get to do that.
Well, so that's such good training for them to think about that. Less of you, more of other people, being generous. Like that's just training them to create havens in a really tangible way for kids. Because sometimes If we talk about this stuff with our kids, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I'll tell my kids, like, we are a hospitable home. Like, we've got to take care of the people who enter. And they're like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. Oh, one of my nieces recently asked that, and she's like, so do you just mean be kind? I was like, yes, I do just mean be kind. And so, yeah, it's when they break it down to the core of what it is, it's good. It's good. I learn a lot from these kids. And then, yeah, the book, when I visualized it, like I really, because again, talking about sort of that art school background and my love for getting into the experience of a thing, I really wanted it to feel like a gift to people, and that you could just sort of, that it would feel like a haven, that the experience of being a reader of the book would feel like the thing that I was trying to explain how to do. I was like, I wonder if there's any publisher, like I knew I could do that if I self-published, but I was like, I wonder if anybody's going to let me do that, and trust me to lead the creative direction with it. And they did, and they gave me the reins. And so that allowed me to pick the photographers whose heart was just synced to what, I just knew, like, I just picked the kindred spirits. And yeah, I wanted a few recipes, lists. I love things that are a little bit like cobbled together, and is not just like sort of one big long thing. I don't know, maybe one day I should just try to write a novel with no pictures. But right now I love mixing pictures in. And I think even for people who don't have like a lot of time to just sit down and read a book, like cover to, like this is more of like, I wanted people to feel like free in it, to just pick it up, turn to a page, what catches your eye, and yeah, just kind of turn about within it. So.
Yeah. What is your favorite recipe that's in there?
Oh, well, I keep making the focaccia, which says a lot because it actually does take some time. Oh, you should. It's very. I had never done that. Like I'd never had the patience to really like let something like proof and bloom. I was like, oh my goodness. And my sweet friend Elise was so good to like walk me through it and give the recipe for that. I also really like, I have a recipe in there from my Italian landlord, Giovanna, and it's her milk and grappa recipe. And it's just like a sweet, warm nighttime drink. And you don't have to have grappa, but in the book, we say you can go either way. But she wanted me to feel better. I was sick. And so it was this like little recovery moment. And she was sort of like a hard woman. So when she came in and she was like, let me take care of you with my warm milk and grappa, it was very tender. So I love that recipe being in there too.
Yeah. Okay, before we go, do you have any like last encouragement for people who are just curious about what you have to say, who are wanting to be more generous with their time and their abilities and their resources?
I hope people just feel like it meets them in a possible way, like that it meets them where they're at, and it feels like something. I think so many people really long to take care of people and to be hospital and all of this stuff. And they long for that for themselves. And so it's just that sometimes I think it's felt in some ways out of reach. And so I hope that this just feels like a real possibility for people, and that it just inspires something or comforts something within them.
Yeah. You can make a nice little space in a basement with no windows.
You can. A lamp helps. Any lamp. Just take it out of your child's room. They can lend it out for a day.
They don't need a lamp. And you can also make focaccia bread in like one small oven.
Yes.
You don't need all the things.
That's right. You could probably do it over an outdoor fire. I haven't tried that yet.
That sounds like something I'm probably not going to try, but if you try it, you should.
I'll let you know. I feel like it would actually totally fail for me, so never mind.
I just feel like the heat would be so hard. But I would love it if you try and let me know how it goes.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Part 2.
Yeah.
Bake over an open
Part
campfire.
2, failure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on. Can you tell us how we can connect with you and get a copy of your book and anything else you want us to know?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I tried to keep everything really simple. So my name is just Liz Bell Young, and that's my website, that's my Instagram, and the title of the book is Let There Be Havens. It's out on August 6th. That's when Amazon sends it to people. And I guess maybe it's in bookstores at the same time. I'm honestly not really sure. But I think that's the official launch date. So you can buy it off my website or Barnes Nobles or, I mean, if you want to. I don't want to push anything, but I really hope that it can be nice for people to have. So
Yes, I think it will be. I really enjoyed it. So thank you for
thanks,
sharing with us.
Steph.
Thank you for putting it out in the world. And thank you for being on.
Yes. And enjoy your party with your 13 women and girls coming over.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Christian Parenting Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you love this podcast, would you please consider leaving a review and sharing it with a friend? This is the best way to reach more people and encourage even more parents. Christian Parenting is a donor-funded ministry, and we rely on friends like you to keep podcasts like this going. So to find out more about Christian parenting and to make a donation, head over to christianparenting.org or at christianparenting_org on Instagram. Thank you again. See you next week.
Back to school savings are officially in session at Tanger Outlets. Shop tax-free August 2nd through 6th and save up to 70% off the latest school styles. The best of apparel, footwear, accessories, and more. Save at Nike Factory Store, American Eagle, Gap Outlet, Crocs, Under Armour, Banana Republic Factory, and hundreds more. There's always something happening. Discover the latest fun and events all season long. Tanger Outlets, your savings destination.